Hi, this is Gabe from fluentforever.com. In these 3 videos, I'm going to show you the bare essentials of phonetics and spelling for Brazilian Portuguese. If you're using one of my pronunciation trainers, don't worry about memorizing this stuff. The trainer will do that for you. Just watch and pay attention. Everything you see here will show up sooner or later within the trainer. I'll be going through Portuguese using the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. This lets us simplify our discussion a lot, since I only need to talk about 35 or so symbols, many of which you know already, instead of trying to wade through around 130 spelling rules. So, let's get started. We'll break this discussion up into 3 parts. The first will cover the Portuguese consonants, the second will cover the vowels, and the third will cover a few of Portuguese's spelling rules. Now, Portuguese has 21 consonants, and if you speak English, 14 of these are going to be relatively familiar sounds and familiar symbols. 4 will be relatively familiar sounds with unfamiliar symbols, and 3 more are really new. Since I don't speak Portuguese, let me pass this off to our native speaker.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I'll be helping with pronunciation for the rest of these videos.
Let's start with 9 really straightforward sounds and symbols.
There's B as in bola, F as in fogo, G as in gato, M as in mesa, N as in navio, S as in seta, V as in vaca, Z as in zebra, and H as in rato.
Note that while the IPA has an H, and the sound you're hearing is that familiar H sound from English, rato. In Portuguese, this is spelled with an R. We have 4 more familiar sounds, this time with a few unfamiliar IPA symbols. First, we have
Sh as in chave, or English's shave.
In IPA, the sh sound is indicated with a big, curvy S. Next up, we have this symbol, which is
J as in janela, or English's beige.
We then have 2 more familiar sounds that basically combine a sh or a j sound with a t or a d, respectively.
There's ch as in tigre, or English's cheese, and there's j as in bonde, or English's jeep.
These 2 consonant combinations are basically the same in English and Portuguese. That said, when you come across t's and d's that are all on their own, then they're going to sound a little different between the 2 languages, which is what we're going to talk about now. There are 5 consonants in Portuguese that are slightly different from their English counterparts. And we'll start with that Portuguese D and T.
There's D as in dedo and T as in tomate. If you're comparing the D's in English and Portuguese, you can say de mim and demi.
If you pay close attention, you'll notice that in the English word, demi, the very tip of your tongue hits the alveolar ridge, that ridge right behind your upper front teeth, d. But in Portuguese, the tip of your tongue flattens out a bit, so that the tip of your tongue actually touches your upper teeth, and the blade of your tongue, that part right behind the tip of it, that touches your alveolar ridge.
This gives you a less percussive sound. You get demi instead of demi. Demi, demi.
It's exactly the same for Portuguese's T.
Instead of tu, you get tu. And that puff of air you get when you say t, t, tu is also gone. T, t, tu.
So with that, let's move on to 2 more consonants that also don't have big puffs of air in Portuguese.
There's p as in pena and k as in coração.
For both of these consonants, the difference between English and Portuguese is all about that puff of air.
In English, for instance, there's p as in p. P, p. Same thing with k. In English, we have k as in key, and in Portuguese, we have k as in Mickey. Comparing them directly, English has Miki, and in Portuguese, Miki. Miki, Miki.
The last of these slightly modified consonants is Portuguese's L.
As in livro.
It's a familiar symbol in IPA, it's a lowercase l, but it sounds a bit different from English. In English, when we say a name like Lee, the back and front of your tongue both come up towards the roof of your mouth. Lee. But in Portuguese, only the tip of your tongue comes up, and it reaches just behind your upper front teeth.
Li. English has li, Portuguese, li. Li, li.
Next, we're going to cover 3 new symbols with relatively new sounds. The first of these is known as the tapped R, and it shows up in IPA as a kind of rounded off lowercase r.
It sounds like m as in morango.
For this consonant, your tongue goes right up against your alveolar ridge, where you make that D sound, d, d, and it just touches there for an instant before allowing the air to move just over the tip of your tongue. I'd say the biggest difference between a quick D and a tapped R is that after a D is over, your tongue is going to be flat in the bottom of your mouth, but after a tapped R is over, the tip of your tongue is still going to be raised slightly. It gives you a bit of R flavor. The best trick I've heard for pronouncing this consonant is to think the phrase Prince of Prussia while you are saying Prince of Prussia. You're going to replace those R's with D's. And then you kind of play around until your tongue starts to cooperate. Prince of Prussia, Prince of Prussia, Prince of Prussia. This one should come pretty quickly in that context. In Portuguese, this sound only exists when the letter R is preceded by a consonant and followed by a vowel, as in Prince of Prussia.
Or between two vowels, as in morango.
Any other times you see an R in a word, it'll be pronounced as an H, like we found earlier. So that's all for R. Next up.
Our next new consonant is ny, as in uña.
It's written like a combination of a lowercase n and j. Say the English words you and yawn. When you say that y sound, you, the middle of your tongue raises up towards the roof of your mouth. Y. For this ny consonant, it's the exact same motion. But the middle of your tongue doesn't just move towards the roof of your mouth. It actually touches it, stopping the airflow and forcing the air to come out of your nose. Ny, ny. You get that quick y sound right at the end, just as soon as your tongue moves on and away from the roof of your mouth to pronounce the next vowel.
Ny, uña. In Portuguese, it's spelled NH. Last up but not least, we have l, as in alho.
This is basically in the exact same position as ny. Your tongue is raised in the middle and it's touching your hard palate. The only difference is that in this case, instead of sealing off the flow of air completely and forcing it to flow out of your nose, ny, in this case, the sides of your tongue will come down and allow the air to flow in the gap between your tongue and your upper teeth on both sides of your tongue. This produces a sound that's a combination between a kind of L sound and a Y sound.
L, alho.
And with that, we have covered all of the consonants of Portuguese. To review, we had 9 consonants with familiar sounds and familiar symbols.
There was B as in bola, F as in fogo, G as in gato, N as in mesa, N as in navio, S as in seta, V as in vaca, Z as in zebra, and H as in rato.
We then had 4 familiar sounds with new symbols.
There was sh as in chave, j as in janela,
and the combinations
ch as in tigre, and j as in bonde.
Then we covered 5 consonants that are slightly different between Portuguese and English.
There was d as in dedo.
This was a D but articulated with the tip of your tongue against your front teeth.
And there was t as in tomate.
Articulated in that exact same spot and without any big puff of air like we use in English.
Then there came p as in pena and k as in coração.
Also without puffs of air.
And then there was l as in livro.
An L pronounced with only the front of your tongue. Finally, we went over 3 totally new consonants.
There was a tapped R, d as in morango. There was ny as in uña.
This was an N made with the middle of your tongue against the roof of your mouth.
And I as in alho.
An L made in that exact same spot, this time letting the air flow over the sides of your tongue. And that is it for Portuguese's consonants. Next up, vowels.